The first ever Isle raid on the Westlands ended with the inhabitants of the Threefold Land successfully carrying out the grim task they had set out to do, even if in the end the defenders claimed victory and announced that they drove off the invaders. However, during the climax of this clash, an unusual situation occurred. The birth of a child on the battlefield, a child who was to become the Dragon Reborn, and disturb the order which had existed since the end of the War of the 100 Years. In this episode of our series dedicated to the Wheel of Time, we will bring you closer to the search for the prophesied child and the clash at Tarwin's Gap and the Eye of the World, where this hero will reveal himself. Those of you who play D&D are already familiar with being a hero, but perhaps you can be tempted by the dark powers offered in this video's sponsor, the Flesh and Steel Collection, a set of 3 books that brings you mastery of the suppressed disciplines of necromancy and technomancy. The first tome is the Book of the Unending, an overhaul of necromancy with 50 new spells, the new Grand Mal Necromancer class, and enough power to bring anything you want back into the realm of the living, for whatever purpose you design. The second book is the Progenium Arcanum, a complete guide to the new magic school of technomancy, arising from those secretly worshipping technology, with 50 new spells and 30 blueprints, complete with a new Technomancer class to master them. Both these books are packed with loads more beautiful details and features, which are perfectly demonstrated with the third book, The Dusks of Eldrona. This is an adventure in the dark world of necro and technomancy, with countless NPCs, locations, and the all-new Infamy and Eminence game mechanics. These track your reputation, be it good or evil, become too infamous and agents of justice will intervene to stop you, or if you're good enough you might become such an agent yourself. For far more details on this new collection, and to get it for yourself, use our Kickstarter link below, where all pledges will also get you a leather sleeve to bind it all together, with various other reward tiers being available, so go dive into the Flesh and Steel collection for a new D&D experience. Not long after the Battle of the Shining Walls, in the year 978 of the new era of the Third Age, Moiraine Damodred passed her test and was accepted into the ranks of the Aes Sedai. Moiraine, who was of royal blood, didn't want to allow the White Tower to place her on the throne of Caerhien, so she left Tar Valon to search for the Dragon Reborn. Heading towards the Borderlands, she joined forces with Lan Mandragoran, making him her warder. For the next several years, they travelled through the Westlands, looking for the Boy of Prophecy. Early in the spring of 998 NE, they arrived at Emond's Field, a small village in western Andor, in a region called the Two Rivers. The appearance of the Aes Sedai and her warder caused a stir among the townspeople, who looked upon the newcomers with a certain amount of distrust. Moiraine continued her search among the teenage boys who had been born around the day of the Battle of the Shining Walls. Meanwhile, the townspeople continued to prepare for the Beltane Festival, celebrations dedicated to the beginning of spring. While the Two Rivers were celebrating, Emond's Field was unexpectedly invaded by Trollocs, who strangely targeted only 3 houses. The presence of the sorceress and her warrior minimized the loss of both people and their possessions. Moreover, extrapolating from the Trollocs' targets, this event allowed Moiraine to choose 3 teenagers who matched the age of the dragon she was looking for. Promising to protect them and claiming that their departure would stop further attacks, she left Emond's Field with the youths Matrim Calthon, Perine Bara, and Randall Thor, informing the boys that they were to refer to themselves as the entourage of Lady Alice. After some time, they reached the mining town of Baerlin, where it was discovered that they were followed by 2 other people from the village, Egwene Alvir and the wisdom Nynaeve Almira. In addition, they met 2 other survivors of the attack on the village, the gleeman Tom Merrilin and the merchant Padden Fane. Baerlin was only a stopover on the way to Tar Valon, but there Rand met a woman who knew they had come with Moiraine, though Althor vehemently denied it. This woman was Elmindreda Farshaw, or Min for short, who revealed to the boy from the Two Rivers that she could see pieces of the pattern by looking at a character. During the night, the group left the town, trying to escape from Myrddraal. In an attempt to lose the Trolloc pursuit that had been following them from Emond's Field, the group decided to spend the night in Shedar Logoth. The presence of the Trollocs and Meshedar's activity forced them to flee and separated some members of the group. Before parting ways, Moiraine Sedai advised everyone to go to the city of Caemlyn, the capital of the Kingdom of Andor, as this would be their next destination. In 3 groups, they headed towards Aes Sedai's chosen location. Mat, Rand and Tom made it to the river, where they boarded a ship led by Bail Domon, who, upon seeing a Trolloc chasing the escapees, agreed to transport them closer to the capital. Perrin and Egwene travelled overland, encountering the Tuatha'an, a people who wandered the world in search of the song that had been lost centuries ago. The nomadic lifestyle was not the only thing that set them apart from the rest of the Westlanders. The second unusual feature was the so-called Way of the Leaf, a completely pacifist approach to the world and resignation to one's fate. Spending some time among the Tinkers, as the Tuatha'an were called, the duo later set off towards Caemlyn, coming across a force of the Children of the Light, led by Geofram Bornhold. This encounter was less pleasant, as the White Cloaks wanted to kill Ebara upon reaching Amadisia, the capital of the Kingdom of Amador, considering him Shadow Friend due to his golden wolf-like eyes. The last group consisted of Moiraine, Lan and Nynaeve. Their journey was remarkably uneventful, though Almira blamed the Aes Sedai for all the misfortunes that had befallen her and the rest of Emond's Field. Despite this, the Blue Ajah discovered the ability to channel the One power within the Wisdom, and decided to teach it to her, suggesting she should join the White Tower. By Moiraine's appraisal, Nynaeve was so capable and powerful that she would have been accepted right away, instead of being trained as a regular novice. Soon after, they rescued Perrin and Egwene from the Children of the Light and travelled with them to Caemlyn. Over the next few days, each group reached the capital of Andor. Matrim and Rand arrived first and began looking for an inn where they would meet the others. Althor, not wanting to stand out too much from the crowd, bought a piece of red cloth from one of the traders and wrapped it around his sword. Rand chose this as it was the only one he could afford. Making their way through the people who had come to see the captured false dragon, they arrived at the Queen's Blessing, where the bard had told them they would be safe. Soon after, he left Basel Gil's possessions to watch the false dragon, Loghain Ablar, being delivered to the Queen. However, he was spotted in the crowd by a beggar who had been asking about him, Perrin and Mat earlier. Guessing it was a dark friend, he began his escape, later climbing one of the walls, wanting to both flee from the figure chasing him and see the scene of the false dragon being handed over to the Queen. Watching the procession, he focused primarily on the caged false dragon, but he lost his balance and fell from the wall into the garden, where he was found by Elaine and Gawain Trakand and their half-brother Galadedrid Damodred, who brought Rand before the Queen of Andor, Morghese Trakand, who was privately the mother of said siblings. Seeing no threat in the trespasser, despite having a sword with the heron mark on it, a symbol used by swordmasters, she let him go. The reason for this was an oath confession of who he was and what he did in the city, and the ribbon tied to the boy's weapon, the red colour indicating he belonged to the Queen's party as opposed to white, which suggested support for the White Cloaks. The conflict was based on the Sun's hostility toward all Aes Sedai, as the rulers of Andor sent their children to the White Tower for training, and always hired advisors who were sorceresses from Tar Valon. Morghese's advisor, Aes Sedai of the Red Ajah, Aleida de Avrinia Royhan, was not pleased with this turn of events, further prophesying that Rand would be the cause of all pain and division in the future. After leaving the castle, he returned to the Queen's Blessing, where he met the rest of his friends. While in Caemlyn, the group met Loial, son of Arent, son of Hallen, one of the Oggiers, and made a less pleasant discovery in the form of a ruby dagger taken by Mat from Shadar Logoth. By having it with him all the time, Matrim began to behave like the old inhabitants of Aritol, beginning to notice shadow friends everywhere. Aes Sedai of Blue Ajah decided to help him, but were unable to completely separate him from the cursed weapon without killing the boy in the process. Upon meeting Loial, the Ogier named all 3 of Moiraine's chosen ones from Emond's Field as Taveran, explaining who the pattern changers are. The Blue Ajah informed all the companions that the next stop on their journey would not be the White Tower, but the city of Faldara, located in the distant kingdom of Shinar. The reason for this change was the dreams of the former inhabitants of the Two Rivers, in which the mysterious Eye of the World appeared. Moiraine explained that this structure was in danger, urging Loial to lead the group through the roads. The roads were a creation of the male Aes Sedai of the time of the breaking of the world, and a gift from them to the Ogiers that connected their abodes, called steading. They allowed travel over long distances in a time-saving manner, but during the New Age, they were mostly overrun by Shaitan influence. Using this creation, they reached their destination, where they met Lord Agelmar Jagad and Inktar Shinawa, who were preparing with their troops to depart for the pass that separates the Mountains of Doom from the spine of the world, called Tarwin's Gap. While the Taverin were in the fortress, Jagad's warriors captured a man who was climbing the walls. To everyone's surprise, this man turned out to be Padan Fain, who, during the interrogation, revealed that he was a shadow friend, and that he was responsible for the Trolloc raid on Emond's Field, and that he'd been chasing the boys all along. Leaving the merchant under guard, the Blue Ajar led her group towards the Blight in order to reach the Eye of the World. The Eye of the World was a structure created by 100 male and 100 female Aes Sedai at the turn of the Second and Third Ages, during the Breaking of the World. When Moiraine led the group to the Eye, it turned out to be the source of Sidon, but without the taint of Shaitan, resembling an oval well or pond. This creation was guarded by Someshta, the last living Nym, also called Green Man. Once there, the Blue Ajar explained that they came here to protect the Eye from the Dark One, because if he took them, the world would be lost. Not long after arriving, they were attacked by two Forsaken, Aginor and Balthamel, who had recently broken out of a prison created by Lews Therin Telamon. They broke up Moiraine's group in an attempt to seize the pure Sidon, but the Green Man stood in their way, facing off against Balthamel, while Rand and the creator of the Shadowspawn began their battle for direct control of the Eye. Channeling one power, consciously but involuntarily for the first time, Rand al'Thor was unable to defeat the more experienced foe. However, Aginor, drawing too much of the one power, defeated himself, turning to a heap of ashes. At the same time that the clashes for the Eye of the World were being fought, Lord Agelmar Jagad's forces moved to meet the Trollocs at Tarwin's Gap. With no prospect of success, and possessed of a much smaller army than the Shadowspawn, the warriors of Shienar successfully held off the enemy, but they weakened much faster than the invaders. Regrouping to strike the enemy again, the warriors, along with their commander, spotted a figure that in an instant created a wall of fire that raced faster than a horse towards the Trollocs, only to bury most of the army beneath the mountains, obliterating the Blight Horde's superiority to just 2-1, but almost completely crushing their will to fight. This character turned out to be Rand al'Thor, who, after the thoughtless death of Aginor, instinctively moved to the battlefield, disappearing right after to fight a short and victorious duel with the character who haunted his dreams, Ba Alzamon. After defeating the supposed Shaitan, Rand al'Thor returned to the remnants of the Eye of the World, realizing that all his companions had survived. The only ally to fall was the Green Man, but he managed to defeat Balthamel, killing the other Forsaken. While Rand was finding out what had happened, Lan, Mat and Perrin went to the remains of the Eye, where they found a chest and a broken stone. The trunk contained two priceless items. The first was the Horn of Valir, a magical instrument that summoned the souls of fallen heroes associated with the Wheel, and the second was the Banner of the Dragon, under which Lews Therin led his troops during the War of Power. Moiraine Sedai announced that the horn must go to Ilion, the capital of the kingdom of the same name, where forces will begin to gather against the Dark One. She also explained that this broken stone was one of the seals Telamon used to create Shaitan's prison, and it was made of Quaindia, a material that the most powerful Aes Sedai, using the strongest sa'angreal, could not break. The Blue Ajar also confirmed her suspicions that he was the Dragon Reborn. The Eye of the World was defended, and a tool was found that could tip the scales of victory in favour of the forces of good, but the freed Aginor and Balthamel heralded trouble on an unprecedented scale. The broken seal informed of the approach of Taman Gaidan, the final battle, for which humanity was not prepared at all, much less aware of it. The coming months were going to stir up the Westlands more than anything before. More videos on the Wheel of Time series are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.